The journey to greatness is no walk in the park. It's riddled with obstacles, challenges, and moments that make you question whether you've got what it takes. It's about pushing through when every muscle screams, every bone aches, and every voice is telling you to give up. So what is the elusive factor that stands between you and your best self? Well, it's the key to conquering your dreams. It's the cornerstone of peak performance. It's consistency. Consistency isn't just a buzzword, it's the heartbeat of champions. In the realm of sports, it's the difference between being good and becoming legendary. Today, I'm not just going to tell you about the importance of consistency, I'm giving you the blueprint. This video will unravel the 4 pillars of consistency that will transform you into the unstoppable force that you were born to be. So buckle up, because we're about to redefine the game. Pretty much every single athlete I've ever worked with as a mental performance coach has had some issues with consistency. They perform great maybe for a few weeks, maybe even a couple of months, but then something happens that takes them off track. It may be injury, it may be screwing up in a decisive moment, or just an unlucky moment or two. Whatever it is, as an athlete, you can't make excuses, because athletic consistency is the most important thing to have if you're going to fulfill your potential and put in peak performances. But many athletes don't truly understand this concept fully. And if you don't understand it fully, then how do you expect to achieve it? So from a psychological standpoint, consistency can be broken down into 3 components. 1, cognitive consistency. So this is the alignment of your beliefs, values, and attitudes to create a coherent mental framework. So in other words, can you and will you wake up every day truly believing that you're going to make it at the highest level? Or do you let cognitive inconsistency arise where one day you feel like you're top of the world thinking, I'm going to be the best there is, and then after a bad training session or performance later that day, you're left thinking, maybe I'm not good enough. And it's this cognitive consistency that the very elite have, because it keeps them focused, energized, and able to keep going despite the inevitable run of poor form that every athlete faces. Think of Kobe, Ronaldo, Djokovic. These guys developed beliefs about their abilities that were so strong that even after having a shocking performance, they'd still come out and say, I'm still number 1. And this then feeds into the second component, emotional consistency. So this is the stability of emotional responses and expressions over time and in response to various stimuli. So in more simple terms, can you regulate your emotional state to remain at the same level, irrespective of what's going on? Can you retain the exact same level of composure during a regular season game and the championship game? Because if you're not consistent in that sense, on the one hand, you're prone to panicking and suffering performance anxiety. Or on the other hand, you become too hyped up and a loose cannon, which causes major lapses in concentration. The very elite are so consistent in their emotional state, but they know they need to tap into and dial up different emotions in different situations. But this itself remains consistent. So it's things like consistently using more aggression if you and your team have started a game weakly and you're getting dominated by the opposition to begin with. Or consistently remaining calm when taking free throws in the last 30 seconds of a close match. And it's only when athletes become truly consistent in their cognitions and their emotions that they can nail the final component, which is behavioral consistency. This is the tendency to exhibit similar patterns of behavior across all kinds of performance contexts. So can you get your body to perform the same skills at the same pace with the same level of power or with the same level of fine motor control time after time? Can you keep up an incredibly high rate of accuracy with shots? Can you always perfectly time tackling opponents? Or can you engage in the seamless movement of gradually picking up the turnover of your legs during a race? The very elite are consistent because they do all of these things in the exact same way, to the exact same standard, almost every time they engage in them. But as said, this one cannot emerge if the first 2 are not present. Consistency is difficult. If it wasn't, everyone would be a world beater. But there are 4 key things I know will dramatically increase the odds of letting athletes increase their overall consistency on all 3 of these fronts. These are the pillars of consistency because they quite literally hold up that consistency game after game and season after season. So pillar 1 is mental resilience. This is what pretty much all sports psychologists would say is the cornerstone of enduring elite athletic performance. It basically entails an athlete's ability to navigate challenges, setbacks, and pressure with unshakable determination. In sport where there is so much unpredictability, cultivating mental resilience becomes crucial for sustained success. And this resilience is not just about bouncing back from adversity, but also adapting, growing, and thriving in the face of challenges. To build your mental resilience, there are so many different mental skills that aid this. It's like physical exercise. People can get aerobically fit either from kettlebell workouts, HIIT sessions, spin classes, or running. You've just got to find out what works best for you. To do this, you might be interested in my ebook, The Mindset Manual, where I detail the full range of mental skills that elite performers use, and I also provide practical exercises so you can start using them immediately. So check that out in the description below if you're interested. But one key skill every athlete should try is the regular practice of self-honesty. Because those who are truly mentally resilient don't just try to bury things in terms of their thoughts and feelings, because that causes those to spiral or resurface in much more dangerous ways. Instead, what the very elite do is be brutally honest with themselves. They face up to the fact that they failed, they're not trying hard enough, or that they've wimped out during tough moments. And this honesty shows you that those setbacks are rightly a problem or an issue, but they force you to confront them head on so that you can develop a consistent approach to getting the best out of yourself. The number one thing you can do to engage in this self-honesty is ask yourself one simple question. Did I do enough? And then force yourself to write continuously for at least 5 minutes on that question. The goal here is to think deeply about whether you did enough in the heat of the moment, such as, did you really push your body to its absolute limits? Or did you really do enough in terms of preparation to get yourself in the right headspace for an amazing performance or practice session? The more honest you are with yourself, the more you confront yourself to push harder next time. And this over time builds up that mental resilience because it conditions you to be consistent in striving to be that little bit better next time, every time. It stops that easy pathway of just plateauing from emerging because consistency is also about continual progress and avoiding stagnation. So pillar 2 is all about the importance of establishing and maintaining routines and rituals. In the realm of athletic consistency, routine and rituals shape the daily lives and performances of athletes. These structured practices not only provide a sense of familiarity and comfort, but also play a key role in grounding athletes when they face a lot of the unpredictability that just happens in sport. If you think about habits, whether it's waking up at the same time, eating the same breakfast, or doing the same warm-up, the common thread among all of these things is that they offer a sense of control and predictability. Having this psychological stability allows athletes to have a heightened sense of readiness on a daily basis, which enables them to transition seamlessly between training, competition, and recovery. If you want to be consistent in your performance, the reality is you need to be consistent pretty much all day, every day. You need your mind and body to run like clockwork, and the only way to achieve this is through strong routines. And so I always recommend that the athletes I work with try to gain as much predictability in their week-to-week life. And to do this, we run through an exercise called My Ideal Day. And we create 2 versions of this, a training day and a game day. And in this, we map out what does a perfect day look like from the moment you wake up to the moment you go to sleep. What are all the things that need to be ticked off to help you perform as optimally as possible from both a physical and a mental standpoint? And so it's up to you the level of detail that you want. Some athletes are hyper detail oriented, and so we'll map out 5 to 10 things they do before even leaving their house to go to training. Things like taking 10 deep breaths, saying a prayer, jumping in the shower, getting dressed, eating breakfast, writing out training intentions for the day, and so on. Whereas others take a less detailed approach of just waking up and getting ready for training, but they know in the back of their mind what that entails, and they're able to just run with it. Either approach is fine. I wouldn't say one is better than the other. Just run through this in however much detail you feel is necessary for you as an individual. And to be honest, the individual tasks and things to tick off don't necessarily matter. It's just about conditioning yourself to feel a sense of control. Because having all of that control in build up to training and performances then carries over into feeling a much greater sense of control during those trainings and performances. You're locked in and ready to dictate proceedings. You're the general. You're the pilot flying his plane. And if you think about it, a lack of consistency is often due to not being able to control circumstances. So the more control you have in your life, naturally the more consistent you become. But this control can only really come through having a clear focus and attention on the things that enable you to become as consistent as possible. And this is where pillar 3 comes in, goal setting and monitoring. You can't be consistent unless you have a clear, consistent vision of what you're actually striving towards. And a lot of that emotional and cognitive inconsistency often comes from the fact that athletes don't have a crystal clear pathway that they've mapped out for themselves. And most athletes, unfortunately, often take a very vague approach to goal setting as well. They'll set the goal of, I want to be the best or get better. Well, what the hell does that even entail? What are the key variables or metrics that indicate you're one of the best or that you're actually getting better? So to overcome this vagueness, you have to use a tried and tested goal setting framework. I actually did my master's dissertation in goal setting, and look, there's so many different frameworks out there, and loads of them can and do work. Again, you just have to find one that resonates most with you. But the research does show that SMART goals are a top strategy to use that you can't really go wrong with. So in case you're not familiar, this is an acronym that stands for specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. If you set and plan out goals that meet these 5 criteria, you have crystal clear objectives to move towards. But where many athletes then go wrong is that they set these goals and then just forget about them. Those who are elite are constant and consistent monitors of their goals. They have systems in place to regularly check in with these goals and adapt or adjust where necessary. Because often the goals that we set are best case scenarios, but given how sport works and all its unpredictability, the best case scenario often gets thrown on its head. So whether you're setting goals that are a month away, 3 months away, or an entire year away, you need a monitoring process that you visit ideally each week. One that I've used with a lot of athletes is just 3 simple questions. How far along are we? What's gotten us this far and needs repeating, and what's slow progress and needs changing. And from this, we discuss everything that we need to do in order to recorrect course on this choppy voyage towards achieving goals. And the advantage of doing this is that we consistently reflect on the actions that we're taking towards a goal, and those become a consistent behavior, and we can unshackle ourselves from the things that are sabotaging that progress. It's really that simple, but makes a huge difference to an athlete's ability to remain consistent week in, week out. The 4th and final pillar of consistency is one that most athletes forget and neglect. One that many also think at face value will do the opposite and lead to inconsistency. So what is this one? Well, it's the critical significance of self-care and recovery. Sustained performance excellence quite simply goes hand in hand with overall well-being in all other aspects of life. This pillar underscores the integral role that physical and mental health play in an athlete's ability to consistently deliver peak performances. Grounded in theories of stress and recovery, this pillar acknowledges that there is a very delicate balance between the needs of the demands of training and competition, but also for the body's need for recuperation. The ebb and flow of stress and recovery cycles are pivotal for preventing burnout, optimizing performance, and creating the mental stability required for enduring athletic excellence. You may have heard that LeBron James spends $1.5 million of his own money each year on his body to improve his recovery and maximize his longevity. And we all know this investment has clearly paid off. Or that Cristiano Ronaldo would go straight to Real Madrid's training center after coming home from an away Champions League match, sometimes at 2 a.m, just to get his recovery workout in. The art of balancing intense training with strategic rest and recovery periods is a non-negotiable if athletes consistently want exceptional performance. It is only those athletes who fully learn to listen to their bodies that are able to sustain a career of 10 or 15 years at the highest level. They are willing to put in more hours each day on their recovery than they are on their actual physical training. But they are also aware of when to take recovery days and strategic breaks to prevent overtraining. This practice not only guards against physical fatigue, but also contributes to mental rejuvenation. Because the problem with consistency is that it is boring and you can just fall into the trap of going through the motions. So this self-care and recovery is vital to breathe enough life into your approach to your sport so that it doesn't become too stale and that you can consistently reset to reach a higher level. So if you haven't already, I would recommend that you develop your own recovery routine. Again, much like everything else we've discussed, this will look different for every individual, but at its core, a solid recovery routine encompasses both physical and mental strategies. For physical recovery, you should focus on sleep optimization, nutrition, and active recovery techniques such as low-intensity exercises and stretching. These things can be facilitated by getting some wearable tech to track your sleep quality or signing up for some nutrition sessions with a sports nutritionist. Additionally, mental and emotional recovery needs to be incorporated into this recovery routine through relaxation techniques, stress management strategies, and just general activities promoting mental relaxation. For some people, this might be meditation. For others, it's taking the dog out for a walk. It doesn't matter what it is, as long as it works for you and helps you detach from the demands of your sport whilst you're doing it. So the journey to greatness as an athlete does indeed come down to the crucial concept of consistency. But this journey will never really take off unless you build a solid foundation through the 4 key pillars of consistency: mental resilience, routines and rituals, goal setting and monitoring, and self-care and recovery. If you set these in the ground, they will over time allow you to achieve that cognitive, emotional, and behavioral consistency that enables you to put in peak performances. This consistency, however, is still not guaranteed until you become intensely self-disciplined as an athlete. To achieve this, you need to watch this video next.